Hi, Colin. I'm Alejandro Rodera from La TV, Spain.
Hey, Alejandro. How are you? Colin.
Great. I want to start from the beginning. One of the first lines of John Sugar in the show is, "I don't like to hurt people," even though we immediately after see him having incredible fighting skills. So that's one of the contradictions of this character, who is at the same time gentle and rough, classic and contemporary. So how was it to play someone like this, who has so many opposites within him?
Thanks, man. He was. It was lovely when I read it. There were these really sweet contradictions that were taking place. He's a character that leans into the history of cinema and is fascinated by an age that has passed, and he's also somebody who's very stuck in the violence and the mystery and the darkness of the contemporary experience as he lives through it. He's somebody who's obsessed with, as a private detective, with finding people who are lost, who have been kidnapped or have been removed from their families and returning them home. He lives, the greatest contradiction obviously was that he lives in a world where he is in contact with violence time and time again, and with darkness and criminality time and time again, and yet he has this kind of optimistic viewpoint in the face of the human experience, and he loves human beings, and he believes in human beings, and he believes in kindness and decency and all these kind of seemingly old-fashioned motifs, and I thought that was beautiful to have a character that is really equipped to deal with violence and to meet it head on, but somebody who really abhors it, like hates it. It was one of the contradictions that I thought was lovely, and he's just less hard-boiled than your quintessential noir detective. You know, there was a sweetness to him, I dare say kind of a niceness to him. You know, he thoroughly lacked cynicism, which I thought was really interesting considering what he does for a living and what he's seen.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that optimism, about that lack of cynicism. He's really kind of luminous and tender, which aren't usual attributes in a noir lead.
Yeah.
So how was it to get into this character without leaning too much in the darker perspective that usually we can see in the genre and also in television nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I knew that the energy and the perspective and the style of noir films and noir as a genre itself was going to be kind of taken care of by Fernando. And it was going to be about the aesthetic of the film, the visual of the film, but it was also going to be about music as well that comes in. Tonally, the characters that John Sugar encounters and his livelihood, the job that he does as a private detective, kind of put the stamp of noir on this as well. But I just knew that coming to it from the inside and just honoring the kind of simplicity of the character. It's a very complicated world he inhabits, but there's a simplicity to the character that I thought was just lovely. So just try to do as little as possible and be present, really as simple as that.
And movies play a really big part in Sugar.
Yeah.
John kind of sees the world through the lens of cinema, and we even get to see clips of films that I think that are in his head, like he processes reality through the movies.
Yeah.
So how was it to build this character, taking so many references while also creating something unique?
Yeah, I think every experience he has in his world is something that he has a kind of a cinematic context for. He kind of has a very rich kind of cinephile's knowledge of film, and I think he sees, as we all have, he sees through film the beauty and the darkness. So his own life is reflected. I think there's kind of a justification for what he does with his life that he gets from watching film and seeing similar kind of tropes being explored on the screen as he explores daily. And yeah, he learns. He kind of, you know, I think somehow his cynicism is kept in check by having this kind of rich reference of 100 years of cinema to lean into. And cinema doesn't shy away from the darker aspects of life, and also doesn't shy away from the hope that can be portrayed in film and can be so emboldening to the human heart when you see something, when you see a piece of art that's beautiful and that's tender and that's kind. And and he gets all that from film. And he's a man who lives alone as well, so he doesn't have much in the way of friendship in his life. You know, Kirby's character Ruby is a friend, but he doesn't have many friends. He doesn't have much of a social life at all. And so I think film is that for him. It's film is kind of the most significant friendship that he has, which is lovely because it speaks to a loneliness that isn't really a burden. It's something that he kind of unconsciously leans into his aloneness, his loneliness, which is beautiful too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Colin.
Thank you, man.
Congrats for the show. Your work is great.
Thanks,
so
brother.
Have a nice day.
Thanks,
man.
You too.
In a lot of seasons. So super.
Thanks, man. I'll see you down the road.